Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Meditation Mastery. I am looking forward to practicing with you all today, and I'm looking forward to sharing some things that I've been thinking about and realizing myself. It's a beautiful, snowy day here in Boston, so I got my nice Bruins snow hat on. And it kind of fits a little bit with the theme. So I gave a talk yesterday at one of my meditation classes, and it was called Hanging Out, about hanging out. And this idea of hanging out, I really like at the moment because I feel that a lot of us put some unnecessary pressure, some unnecessary stress on ourselves when we practice, that we take it really seriously, we become uptight. And meditation, it is a serious practice. It is something that can bring greater benefit than anything else, really. It can really completely transform your reality on the level of your consciousness, right? That's insane. So it's huge. It's such an important thing, but simultaneously, if we take it too seriously, if we're too rigid about it, if we're too intense or forceful with it, it actually doesn't work, and we get the opposite results from the ones that we're looking for. We're here to find peace, to find relaxation. We're here to find balance and to find some kind of like a harmony and a groundedness and a centeredness and a clarity of things. And all of those qualities, they're connected to the sense of rest, this sense of release, of letting go, of softening, of space. That if we want to reach the place of peace, if we want to reach the place of stillness, we need to also then follow a path of peace and a path of stillness. I had this thought yesterday that, I once heard the sentence, like you can't fight for peace. You can only make peace, become peaceful. And I thought about this and I said, well, what about during the war, right? What about during World War II, right? If we did nothing, then there would have been, like the Nazi party would have taken over. It's like we had to fight, right, to create a peaceful world, to stop kind of like a malicious regime from coming through. But then I really looked at that and I said, well, when you're at war, what happens is eventually through the pain, through the struggle, through the hardship, one of the sides surrenders. And that the peace actually comes through the surrendering, through the letting go. Peace comes through making peace. The war is the way that people pressure one side into making peace, to making that decision, to breaking the ego, the collective ego of that side, creating enough pain in that collective ego that ego has to let go and release and surrender. And so peace does actually come through letting go, right? Through making peace, through surrendering. So instead of having to go through that pain, instead of having to make this so painful that we eventually have to let go, why not just jump straight to that letting go, right? Why not just go straight to that surrender? So when I talk about hanging out as a word for this, right, or as a theme, what I mean is that when we focus on meditation and meditating, we focus on it as like an act or an activity or this thing that we do that's outside of us, that we engage in, that you can do right or wrong or good or bad. And, we're used to activities where the more that you try or the harder you push or the more intensity you give into it, the better you get. We see like sports, basketball players and stuff, and they have to bring this like intensity to get really good, or even play piano, right? They have to bring this intensity into it. And so we're used to this understanding that if I want to excel in any activity, if I want to get the results, if I want to be a good basketball player, a good piano player, if I want to be good at something, I have to bring my intensity, I have to bring this, this energy to it, and I have to push and try and strive and kind of that whole thing. Meditation, it doesn't work that way. And the more that I've looked at meditation, the more that I've realized that it's actually not even good for us to talk about meditation at all, to talk about meditation as this thing. We need to actually look at meditation, the word meditation, as being synonymous with stillness. So it's not that I'm meditating. We could say that I'm stilling the mind, that the mind is becoming still, right? So if instead of saying meditation, we talk about the mind becoming still, that at least gives us a little bit more of a framework, because we could say, okay, this is now the practice of stilling the mind. And if you're practicing stilling the mind, what you will start to realize is that the more that you push, the more expectations you have, the more that you want this to work out a certain way, that you want this to look a certain way, the more that you're creating a stress and a tension between what is and what you want, what is and where you think you can push or force this moment into being. And that's the opposite energy from what we're going for. That's not the goal. You know, if you were a firefighter and you realized that this tank that you had in your hands that you thought would put out the fire, and if you splashed it, you saw that it was creating more fire, you'd say, oh, this must be flammable. This is not what I need to put out the fire with, you know, and you would find a different method. So likewise in meditation, if the method that we're using is to find that peace and that stillness is creating more movement, then we can say, okay, that's actually not the right method. It's giving me the opposite of the thing that I'm trying to create. So to practice stilling the mind, what we need to do is to, and like I said, we need to just hang out. We need to sit here and we need to be here, be present with what is, be present with this moment and all of its facets, be present with ourselves, to just kind of be here and to allow things to be like they are, to release the controller, to treat everything like it's just natural phenomenon. So what I mean by that, it's like right now if I was sitting here and there's some clouds outside, you know, okay, there's clouds, and then the sun peeks through, great, and then it's snowing, okay. You know, there's nothing that I can do about any of that. There's birds flying across the sky, no problem. You know, but then I hear the neighbor, right? I hear the neighbor talking loudly. And I could say, well, that I could maybe control, right? Suddenly that's within my sphere of influence. I can maybe control that. So then we start making judgments and opinions and we get angry or this or that. Yeah, or not. Or we've already let that go and said the neighbors may do what they wish. They can do what they want. They're over there. You know, but then maybe our partner or our kid or our parent or whoever we're with in the house, they make a noise. We say, but I can control that because, you know. Or maybe we are at peace with that. And we say, you know, they can do whatever they want. But me, you know, I have a thought and I'm thinking too much. Okay, but I can control that, you know. And whatever we think that we are in ownership of, or whatever we think we have control over, the ego grabs at and it wants to make that ours, part of me, my sphere of influence, right? And through social media and things, right? And TV and internet, we have this bigger sphere of influence, right? We think we can affect bigger and bigger groups and populations, right? And that has its place, you know, that's also important. You know, the Buddha did teach, right? He went out and he gave them, it's not like he just sat and he said, oh, like everything is just nature. And, you know, he went out and he actually also gave. So that is important to realize the sphere of influence. But until we are at a place of wisdom, at a place of peace, of centeredness, of clarity, what is the energy that we're giving out to our sphere? You know, if I'm not clear, I'm going to be just giving my frustration out to my family, to the neighbors, right, to the world, my discontentment. We're just going to be spreading negativity. We see a lot of this, right? A lot of people on platforms, they're just spreading negativity. because they haven't really done that work inside of themselves. They think that the negativity is the truth, right? And when we meditate, we take a very novel approach to the world, and we say, everything is just nature. It's all going about its business. And that includes my own body. That includes my own thoughts, my own feelings. That we practice this surrender. We practice just being present. We practice just being here, allowing things, hanging out with the conditions how they are. I'm sitting and my body just kind of feels like it does. My thoughts, my mind is just where it's at. My emotions, they have their story, right? So my emotions, it's like my storyboard, my storyline that's kind of telling me what's going on right now in my life. And those are all just where they are at this moment, at this cross section of time and space, right? If your life is like a movie, and now we're just pressing pause at a random spot in the movie and just taking in, what is this scene about? What are the feelings of the characters? What is the backdrop? So when you meditate, that's kind of like what's happening. You're hitting pause and you're just taking like this still frame with all of its kind of associations and relationships to the past and the future and the continuity of the story. But simultaneously, when we stop and we see all that stuff, we don't need to do anything. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to change it. We don't need to struggle with it. We don't need to blame and judge about it or get upset about it. We can also just kind of be with things like they are. We're allowed to live in a half-finished house. And knowing that the next day you'll wake up and, one of my teachers, Ajahn Brahm, he actually told us the story that the monk was building the monastery. And then he just took a break, and he was done for the night. And, somebody came to that monk and he said, oh, there's a monastery. And he said, when are you going to be done? And the monk said, oh, I am done. And the man looked at them and he's like, it's only like half built. What do you mean? And he said, well, what's done is done. And for today I'm done and I've let it go. And tomorrow I'll work on it again. And then after I've worked on it tomorrow, then again, I'll be done. And this idea of just being able at any moment just to release the processes where they are, release the stories where they are, to know that, after this meditation, you can pick everything right back up and keep working on them as you wish. But to be able, one of my other teachers, he said, what is freedom about? Freedom is about being to pick things up and put them down at will. Oftentimes we've picked things up and we're holding them, like our worries, our concerns, financial things, right? Jobs, relationships, all these things, these stories, and we're holding these energies. But because they're happening in real time, we think that we have to keep holding them, right? Because the situation hasn't changed. We have to keep being engaged with the story of what's happening. But actually, we are allowed to just put things down. We're allowed to let things go. We don't have to hold things all the time. There's a time to pick something up and work on it, and then there's a time to release it and to free ourselves. And sometimes we feel afraid to release it because we feel like if I'm not holding this thing all the time, I'm losing my power over it. We might feel guilty. I know like when my father was sick and I was lying in bed worrying about him, I had to actively say, right now, me worrying about my father is not going to help. Now's my time to sleep. So I had to put him down and I felt guilty, like as if I'm abandoning him. And I said, Seth, you're not abandoning anybody, but right now there's nothing you can do for this person right now. So instead of just sitting here, keeping yourself up all night, hurting yourself, put that down. You could pick it up again tomorrow, A lot of people, they tell me they have trouble sleeping, right? A lot of times I'm asked, how do you have any recommendations for sleep meditation or YouTube songs, or how can I sleep better? You have this inability to put things down that are not yet finished. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, and it causes them a lot of pain. And this is something that meditation really teaches us. It's how to put things down, how to release them, how to allow ourselves to come back to this state of just being. Not needing to fix, not needing to change, not needing to work on anything. And also not having an aversion and a resistance to things as they are. We are allowed to sit here and kind of just hang out with ourselves, and maybe we'll feel like a soreness in the leg or in the back, right? Or a tightness in the chest or in the belly. And that's okay. We can just sit with that and feel it. And then we can also feel the spaces around it. Then we can see the stories in our head, kind of the voices, the anger, the whatever, the things you have to do, the busyness, the plans. And you can just look at those and say, okay, that's what the mind's up to right now. And it's almost like you're in a house and you're just kind of going room to room, and you're opening up the door and you're looking what's going on in that room. And you kind of just look at it and say, okay, and then you go and you look in the other room, what's going on in that room. And just with this real sense of just, hanging out, just real abandon, like, I'm not here to really do anything. I'm not here to change anything. I'm just kind of checking it out. What's happening? And once you know what's happening in all the rooms of the house, and you kind of just sit down on the couch and you just kind of hang out, you relax, right? Everything just gets really comfortable, really calm. And you allow things to kind of just be how they are. You allow those rooms to now just fade away. I already know what's happening in this house, and slowly that all just kind of fades out of mind. And slowly, when things are not part of the story, when things don't have importance to you in a moment, they fade away. And ultimately, we want everything to fade away. Ultimately, we're trying to get a break from ourselves. And to get a break from yourself, it's just about letting everything fade away. The body fades away, the thoughts fade away, the feelings fade away. That your willpower fades away, your sense of self fades away. Yeah, these perceptions, these deeper level perceptions and beliefs start to fade away. Yeah, the consciousness itself starts to get some new information on these really deep levels, because everything just starts to fade away. And there's really nothing there. There's nothing to hold on to. There's nothing to be, to become. There's nothing to try to get rid of. It's just kind of that deep state of beingness. Yeah, it just is, this isness, right? And that's really where we're looking to go in the meditation. It's to soften, to become more relaxed, to become more open, to allow things, to really just become more of like this witness and this observer, and to be present and to be disengaged. And this kind of active process of being harmless, right? Or non-violence, we also say, right? Just that, look, I'm not here to do anything. I'm just here to be. And eventually we sink into that really peaceful center place, that balance and harmony and all these qualities we're looking for. Those actually arise automatically. It's kind of like when you're learning to swim and you're flailing about and you kind of sink and you get water in your mouth and you're trying to get to the surface, and then eventually you realize, when I just relax and I lean back, I float. That actually the body is buoyant. You breathe in a lungful of air and you just lay back and the body just floats above the water. There's nothing that you need to do to stay balanced. It just happens when you let go. And the principles of meditation work the same. The more things that you let go of, it's like letting go of the effort, letting go of the kicking, letting go of the flailing. You just trust and you let go and you sink. You sink into yourself, and in swimming you don't sink down, you sink into the position, right? You almost like sink onto the surface of the water. When you're floating on top of the water, you feel like you're on like a waterbed, right? You're like, and you can really relax that feeling. And meditation, it's very much the same. It's the state of relaxing into this. The more that you let go, the more that natural balance and natural harmony comes in. You have very intelligent systems working in your body and in your mind that are trying to find a balance, a harmony, a peace. We're naturally trying to get in that direction. So really you can just let go and let those systems take over. And just trust, if I just, release my efforts, relieve myself from the struggle, allow myself just to kind of be here, that will all work out, that things will find their way and balance out. So that's going to be our practice for the meditation today. And I'll guide you in a meditation that brings us down that path so you can get a better experience of it. But really knowing that, you can start where you are, wherever you are, whatever your life looks like, whatever your situation looks like, whatever's going on in you and around you, that's a fine place to meditate from. That's a fine place to start just being present, to start hanging out, to start just checking things out, what's going on, and just start just sinking and relaxing and just being with things and allowing and surrendering, You can win the war right now if you surrender. So thanks for listening to today's talk, and I'll see you in the meditation.